Welcome to the Elokus podcast. This is class number 3 in the discourse Tzion b'mishpat Tipadeh 5672, which is the 11th discourse in the great book B'Shash Egdimu 5672. This is class number 3 also in chapter 41, Perek Mem Aleph. Okay, so yesterday we were beginning to develop the idea and to further explain the idea how Chachma is a complete different experience than Bina. Chachma is wisdom, Bina is understanding, and wisdom and understanding, although they always go together, and wisdom is the source of understanding, and the experience of Chachma, which is the flash or the point of an idea, is what the Bina chews on and opens it up and develops it and brings it to a full expansive state of understanding. Yet the relationship is still one of distance, one from each other. And the real essence of what the Chachma represents doesn't even carry over into Bina at all. And that's related to the concept we were learning yesterday, how Chachma and Bina are called Ayin and Yesh. Chachma is called Ayin, nothingness, because Chachma is a very transcendental state in which you don't yet have a definitive, substantial substance. Bina is already a concrete grasp of the person. There's already, one is sensing very strongly the definitions of something in the Bina, but that itself, that you're sensing the definitions of it, as we're learning early in the discourse, means it's a description of it. It's not the soul of it. It's not who it is and what it is. It's just a description of it. But in order for our limited minds to latch ourselves on to something, we latch on to the externality of it, which is the Bina, which is the definitions of it, which is the Bina, which is referred to earlier as the Metzias of it, the existence of it, but not the Muhus, not the substance of it. The substance of us being able to experience something of its substance is only in the Chachma. And that was the idea that he's explaining, how Chachma is utterly above Bina. That's the idea. And remember, we were learning that in Chachma itself, there is a descent, a gradation. In the higher parts of Chachma, it's utterly beyond an intellectual, logical experience. It's just an openness and where light shines into, and it's like a vision. It's called the Riyah of Chachma, the vision of Chachma, seeing it in its absolute clarity as it is, without any modification at all, in accordance to a person's vessels. The bottom of Chachma, where Chachma begins to already prepare this concept to be able to be transmitted to the processing plant, which is the Bina, to be able to process the information more into vessels and into Kelim, Chachma then translates this visual experience into a different form, into a format of the beginning of an intellectual point. It already has an element of seichel. And it's only when Chachma drops that energy down to the lower part of Chachma, which is called the Yesod of Chachma, Yesod Abba, the Yesod of Chachma, to be able to give it some flavor of logic and intelligence. It's only on that logic and intelligence that Bina can latch itself onto and begin processing. But even when Bina does that to the tail end of Chachma, it's not touching the essence of the Chachma. Because even in the logic of, we're going to see, and that's the main point we're going to develop today, even in the logic of Chachma, where Chachma does enter already the framework of what we call Nekudas HaHaskala, the point of logic, it's already lowering itself to a place of intellectual, its essence. And what's its essence? Its essence is a illumination of truth, or of it beyond seichel, beyond grasp. That's its essence. That's what we're learning right now. Because yesterday we learned we cannot say that the upper range of Chachma is above intelligence. And suddenly in the middle of Chachma, as Chachma drops down lower, it metamorphosizes to a whole new experience of intelligence. You can't say that, because that would mean that Chachma itself, that in one level, as we discussed yesterday, in one level, there are it's two substances. And that's not what it is. This that we say that in a sphera, in any given sphera, in any given attribute or whatever power, there is a reduction as it appears to move to lean in or to develop the next thing that and that's okay, and that's what it's meant to be. But that only means, as we discussed yesterday, it goes from a boldness, from a more intense state, to a lessening of it. But it does not transform and change into something else completely. And therefore, we have to say that we are continuing throughout the entire range of Chachma, we are continuing to be above the world of logic, the world of definitions. We're really above it. And it's only that on the lower levels of Chachma, there is a tinge of the beginning of Seichel, but even there, it's the essence of it, not the externality of it, as he says. Let's go back a little bit towards the end of chapter of Membeis. But don't we say that the Chachma does flow right into Bina? How does that happen? The Bina has nothing to work with unless it gets a point. Once it has a point, it can dissect the point. It's a dissector. It develops it, but it needs a point. So that means that Bina is chewing on the Chachma. The Chol Asagas Bina, and the entire grasp of Bina, Benekudas Haskala, is in the Nekuda of Haskala, the logic that Chachma gave it. How is then Chachma called Ayin? Remember, we said Ayin means it's not revealed in the difference between Ilah v'Alol, cause and effect, is where one thing reveals itself, the cause reveals itself in the space of the effect, and it carries over. But Yesh Me'ayin is the opposite. The new level can only be produced by the previous level, or the cause of it, the power behind it, being hidden from it. But how do you say that? In Chachma and Bina, that's what the whole Bina is to take a piece of Chachma and chew on it. We have to therefore say that even the Nekuda of the Haskala, that Bina does take to chew on, that Bina does take and analyzes it and develops it, even the tipa of Chachma, the point of Chachma, that the Chachma gives over to Bina, is really, in essence, still aloof and separated from Bina. Until it's called ayin, nothingness to the Bina. That means that not only is the higher range of Chachma, the Riyah, the vision of Chachma, called ayin, called nothingness, because Bina has no grasp in that vision, but even the point that where Bina does wrap itself around the Chachma, so to speak, even over there, the essence, the soul of it, the real Chachma of it, remains outside of the grasp of Bina. And that means the Chachma, that even in the Seichel, even when Chachma comes down to be Sichli, to become already an experience of logic, even become already an element of intelligence, Gamke Meir Bezeh, it's also shining in it, Prinasa Etzem. The essence of the matter is what's shining in Chachma. What does that mean? The Menekuda Sahaskala the Chachma. That means that in the point of the Chachma, in the point of that flash of Chachma, Meir Bezeh, there is an illumination, Dakus Etzem Inyan, the fineness, the elegance of the essence of it, meaning the real neshama of it, the soul of it, the true reality of this idea, not the external descriptions of it, which is more already the thing as it shows itself to the outside, but what it is in essence. That means the finer element of it, and that etzem inyan is not, even though it's wrapped in seichel, it's something above seichel. It's something above description. The fineness of the essence of this idea that is now being grasped, which never ever translates to grasp. So the Bina cannot the Bina does not have the ability to process this. And this that does come, that Chachma does transmit to Hasaga, to grasping, which was what Bina is, is only the external of this Nekudas HaHaskala. The external element of the point, it's enough that Bina has something to work with, but not its soul. Hainu hasichli levad. And what is that? It's in the sichli, in the intellectual experience of the point of Chachma, in that flash, the inner element of it is the soul of it. And that's the essence of it. And that's not the intellectual. That's not intelligence. That's above intelligence. That's like a visual. Even in the lowest point of Chachma, there is still something of that. Even when you're not in that higher state of vision of Chachma, which is very high level, even when you're processing on the lower level of Chachma, where Chachma is already intellectual, in there, if it's Chachma, there is a neshama element there. There's a soul element over there that is not sichli. As he says, what the Bina is grabbing is only the sichli levad, loy hargashas ha'atzmi shebahanakuda. Not the sensing, the sensitivity, where you sense the essence of it, that's there in the point. And he explains that. And this is edel, this is a very fine idea. It's going to become more, and we're trying to use Bina words, we're trying to use descriptions to describe what is above description that makes it so difficult over here. But Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe is giving us words. So as we're going to read over to the end of this chapter and moving into the next chapter, it's going to become very clear. Because it is explained and it is known and explained in many places. The Menekudas HaHaskala, that in the point, in the initial flash of Haskala of any conceptual idea, the light shines very, very. There's a great luminance there. But once you take it into the processing plant, which is the analytical side of the mind, which is the left side of the mind, in the many, many details of it, the light goes down. You're seeing a complex concept with lots of ins and outs, with lots of chambers and whatever, but you just don't have that same light that you had in the initial visual where you saw everything as one point. Now you're already caught up in details and you lost that light. And even if you can have the ability of knowing all the details together, it just does not have that, just doesn't have it. Now, he's going to say something very important. This could be understood in a this can be understood incorrectly. And that would mean that what? Since Chachma is the general point and Bina is the details. So, and in the general point, all the details are are concentrated in one point. So therefore the light, the little bit of energy of soul that is invested in all the points, when they come together in the grand central point, in the nucleus of it, since this is the point that includes all the points, there is a greater light over here. So in other words, it would just be the light that's in the Nekudas HaChachma is the added light. It's like if you have, 1 point of light in every detail. When you take the 100 details and you put it into 1 point, you have 100 luminance. He says that's not it. It's not just a unified light of all the details. It is a different light. That's the idea. This that is shining in the Nekudas HaSkala. It's not only an abundance of the illumination of the intellect. Here you have the intellect broken down into pieces. And here you have the intelligence all in a sharp point. So there is an illumination of the light of intellect. He says it's not intellectual light. It's something higher than the logical light. It's something higher than the seichel. Or we would perhaps propose that the difference between the light of Chachma to the light of Bina is as follows. The or that shining in Chachma is the same substance of light that is in Bina as well. Shabbat Bina that is in Bina. We would then say that in the initial point of Chachma, it's 100 watt. It is strong. But when you start chopping it up in details, doesn't have that potency. Mismat, it gets less. That's not the case. Rather, how is it really? In addition to this, in the nekuda, in the point of the initial flash, the essence is present, the essence of this intellectual idea, that does not lend itself at all to the grasping element of definitions where Bina takes over and Bina tries to define it and describe it and all of that does not carry over. The kasherba inyan l'dei hasaga, but when the matter comes to hasaga, to grasping, once you do begin that processing process, misalim, this neshama of it, this essence of it gets hidden. The einer meir klal, it doesn't shine at all. Which that tells you how Chachma is utterly and completely above Bina. Kitzer. Now we finish the chapter, and we do a kitzer. We do the summary. He summarizes what we learned in this chapter. We need to understand as you began 3 classes ago. We asked that, true that we might say that Chachma is called vision. In the last mimer, we left off that Chachma is a vision, is a visual, and Bina is hearing, is understanding. But he asked the question, Chachma also has an element of seichel, not just a visual. So Hali Nakuda Saskala, the Nakuda of Askala is Sichli. The EF Shalom Amiyat B'Chachma. And you can't say that's true. In Chachma itself, the higher part of Chachma is beyond Seichel, beyond intelligence, and the lower elements of Chachma is where its Seichel begins. You can't say that. Why? B'Shvil Bina, and that is only a modification that Chachma is modifying and reformatting so that it can come into Bina. Why? Because that would be a shinoi, a change of the substance. And we cannot say in one level there should be a change of substance. So the idea is, as we learned now in today's class, the Chachma Ayin, and also in yesterday's class, the Chachma Ayin. Chachma is called nothing. Ubina machachma, and Bina from Chachma who yesh me'ayin is something from nothing. She'enoi musag, that is not grasped. Who, which means that Bina, that it's not like we think that Bina is just a further development of Chachma, but rather Bina can only be Bina with Chachma being completely, by Chachma hiding from it completely. The real Chachma, even in the lowest point of Chachma, where it's in a Kudas Haskala, the real quality of Chachma does not at all shine in Bina and remains hidden from the Bina. For whom it may, and that is because because in Chachma, even in the lowest point of the Chachma, the essence of the Sichli is shining, that is utterly beyond the experience of Hasaga grasping. And that is the whole very interesting idea that you can learn Chassidus, and we grasp and grasp and grasp. And then there's suddenly one time we have something going on in our life where we learn and we have an encounter, or we have a moment where our neshama opens up and everything becomes so clear. And that's a chachma moment. It's like, and it's not like just, I got what I've always known, but deeper. It's taking you into a different world. It's like, sometimes I have an experience. I see Mashiach, not like, okay, the A plus, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus, it's equaling Mashiach. There's sometimes such a clarity, something like that. You learn the Rebbe, and suddenly he's like, it's chachma. And then that, and then you can never explain that. That just he's gonna explain it in the next chapter. Chachma is aleg in nefesh. Aleg in nefesh. He uses Yiddish because it's aleg in nefesh means something just settles in your soul. It settles in you. A certain truth just settles into you. And it's beyond, it's a higher, powerful, incredible conviction. Conviction is part of it. This is the way it is. And it's so clear. It's lit. but it's beyond all description. It's the pneumius of it. As he explained now we begin chapter 42. On the miravenir gishadavar, we can see and we can feel shegam hasichli the chachma, that even the seichel of chachma, the logic of the chachma, the intelligence of the chachma, be'etzem, in essence, eino inyan hasaga be'emes. Even, in other words, this that we say that hasaga, grasp, is really in bina, but it starts in chachma. There is already, the lower part of chachma is hasaga. It's the begin. You're grasping something. You're grasping some kind of you have an idea. He's going to say no. The chachma is still beyond grasping, even when it's already a seichel de chachma, an intelligent chachma. It's still beyond grasping. The beikrai, because primarily the experience of chachma, hu inyan hanacha benefesh. The ikar experience of chachma is that something was laid down, a new entity entered into the sphere of your consciousness, and it laid itself down in your soul. It applied itself into your soul, into your mind. Aleg unefesh. In your consciousness, a new reality just settled in. Was be'emlekt sich die Sache sei. People say it appears to me that this is, but appearing is not a good word. So I sense it. And even though we're not talking about, remember Rav, we said a story about him, that one time he came up with a halachic ruling, and his students or someone went and challenged his halachic ruling from some contradiction. Rav was silent. He did not have an answer. And yet Rav remained insistent that what he said is true, even though he had no way to, at least at that point, to refute the question or to answer the question, the challenge that was posed to him. So we asked, how is that? So he said, Rav experienced the higher element of Chachma. He saw the truth of Torah, of this subject matter. And therefore, even though logically he couldn't explain it at all, it didn't make a difference. He just knew this is the way it is, to the point that he felt comfortable that this would be his psak, halacha, that this is the way he issues a verdict for the Jewish people to conduct themselves according to God's will forever. Now, that's a very high, deep level of chachma. And that's called for sure hanacha. It's when you see it, this is it settles into you that this is the truth, and zehu zeh. There's no. He's saying even on a much lower level of chachma, and where it's a flash of intelligence, it's not a pure vision like we discussed earlier. Even there, it's also the flash of intelligence is not so much logic as it is an intellectual conviction that this is the way it is. Even though it's not that type of hanacha that comes from visual. There is a flavor of intelligence and of logic over here. But even the logic itself is a hybrid. It's logic, but it's still above logic. Hanacha is in a manner of sleiktzach. It lays itself down, not in a way that you can grasp it. And the external element of it is the understanding, is the seichel. That will carry over into the bina, where bina will start munching, and chewing on the most external element of this experience. Is the external element of it. The etzema inyan, but the essence of it, is in a manner of, I just feel it and sense this is it. And he's going to prove it from our experiences that we can all relate to. This is where we see when a person toils and exerts themselves, trying to understand something you don't understand. Whether it's our classes, sometimes it gets very deep. And I'll say you listen to a share 3 times already, you're not getting it. Like, what is he saying over here? What's going on? Like these deep maimara. You don't understand it. And suddenly, after chewing it, like thinking about it for days, I hope I'm not giving anybody that terrible headache. But the truth is, it's good. If anything should be perturbing a person and bothering, it's these divine, godly ideas that we're learning over here. But in any case, let's say you have a situation where something is like, it's driving you crazy. You're trying to grasp it and you're not getting it. You're thinking it again and again and again until you reach the point of utter frustration and suddenly, boom. And suddenly, like, it opens up. You come to the depth of Pnimius Inyan and the inner element of it. There's like a whole new understanding, a whole new reality opens up for you. And it occurs, it falls into your intelligence. I got it. This is the way it is. So when that first flash is shining in your seichel, the inyan, in the matter, you're suddenly so relieved and you feel like, this answers everything. You know you got it. You know it's there, and suddenly everything that was bothering you all questions have disappeared. He says it in Yiddish in parentheses, as werd recht, it becomes clear that in Zeir gut, it becomes very correct and very good. It's like there's like this deep satisfaction. But when now you're sitting down and you start to like really bring it into reason and explanation, and you start now thinking into based on what you just experienced, you're trying to like find its details and so forth. And how is this going to explain this element in Hasidus that you've learned in the past? And how is this going to fit with this? And how are you going to and you start like really analyzing it, how it is. You come back to a point of frustration. You feel like, I don't know, I had this clarity, but and you're applying it. And it's not like you lost. You still have the new insight, and yet suddenly, even though like 3 minutes ago it was so clear, now it's again blurry. The idea is not settled in your mind at all. And the reason is because you've lost something. Because as you're moving from the Chachma into the Bina, the essence, the Neshama, the soul of it slips away. That first initial inlay, when this new idea settled itself and like kind of opened itself up into your consciousness, that it was settled in, and then it was all, and since it's true, there's no questions in the essence of it. If it's a truth, then it has to, then it will not be contradicted by any other truth, because it's truth. And the reason why all your questions are answered, because you experience the truth of it, but the soul of it. This that you came initially to the depth and the innermost of it. But that experience was not so much logic, although you felt a certain logical illumination, intellectual illumination. But what was 90% of that experience was the light itself laying itself down in your soul. And it wasn't only intellectual, although it had an outer crust of intellectualism. You sensed over there the essence of the muskal, the essence of the idea. And because of the essence of it, the matter was very clear. But afterwards, when you're trying to focus on the external crust of it, which means you're starting to analyze the details, and in the details is already you're going to the outside of it. So you're dropping the neshama a little bit. You're going to look at the body of it. You're going to look at the details of it. Why? Because you want to. The only way for a person to bring it into their own mind, their own intellectual their own intellectual space, so to speak. The way I have to have this become part of my worldview, part of my reality, of the way I've always been thinking till now. And that requires now dissecting it and bringing it in and matching it up and fitting it in, bringing it into the bina. Into trying to grasp it, the essence of it is disappeared. And only the external part is shining. And in the external part of it, it's not yet only the seichel. And in the seichel part, in the external part, you haven't yet, you haven't settled it yet. Now, it doesn't mean it will not clarify. It will eventually clarify also in the seichel, because if it's true, it's gonna, you might just have to rearrange in your mind various different things until you can say, so this has to be moved like this, and this has to be moved like this. I have to fit in this new truth, this new understanding and recognition. But at this point, it hasn't yet, in the external realm, you don't have yet that, and eventually it will. The Eitzah, and how can you then resolve this friction that's happening? On the one hand, you have an absolute clarity, but on the other hand, you have questions, and especially if you talk to someone else who's been with you in the wrong, in the amateur understanding or the previous understanding, and now you have to explain to them, and they ask you 1,000 questions, and now you're becoming very confused. The Eitzah, what's the solution? Try to get back again to that initial point. And try to stop a moment with try to get back to that flash, and as much as you're able to, ignore the settling of, let's say you have this new insight in this Talmudic discussion, and you have 3 or 4 places on Talmud that you need to answer those sugyas. You need to answer those discussions, how it fits with this new precept of what chazaka means or what this means. You're trying to so now ignore that for a moment. Try to get back to the point. To the depth of the pnimius, like it was in the original illumination when it settled in that first flash. That you should go back to a place where you're going to feel more the original inlay of the concept, that a lake from the minion. And that's going to power your intelligence. It's going to charge your intelligence, going to add more oomph to the intellectual processing to help clarify it also in the outside, on the it's going to sharpen the intelligence of it as well. And this is going to give strength in the seichel part, and then it will help the grasping of bina become more consistent with the truth. To grasp whatever you can grasp in the manner. Okay, we're going to further analyze this Be'ezrat Hashem as we continue. But this is already becoming very, very gishmak, very beautiful in understanding this whole process of Chachma and Bina.